Welcome, everybody. It's 7:01. I call this regular meeting to order. Allison, roll call, please.
Here.
Yes.
Yes.
Here.
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 You know, if everybody could please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Allison, do we have anybody for public comment? All right. Moving on, next on the agenda, Ms. Bridget Leahy will be presenting the Student Council report.
Student Council will be recognizing.
Excellent, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the report? Okay. Yeah, great work by the Student Council. I appreciate the recognition for cancer awareness too. I know it touches everybody's lives. It's very important. Moving on, a presentation from member Beth Tab.
All right. So I recently had the opportunity to attend CASBA, which is the Consortium of State School Board Association, and it was in Tampa, Florida this year. It was March 30th through April 2nd. There were 1,300 school board members and other personnel from 23 member states. So on the first night, oh. Perfect. Okay, so on our first night, the UBA, which is the Urban Board Alliance, they discussed the breakup from the National School Board Alliance and forming CASBA. So this was a pretty important night because I wasn't aware as to why they did the breakup. Essentially, what happened was they were in disagreement on how school boards were being run. So this is how CASBA was formed. So our executive director, who is no longer our executive director, which is Tom Bertrand, he is now the executive director of CASBA. So they did, it's the truth. And so they did basically like a little forum having that conversation. It was really insightful for a new person for like myself to be able to sit there and listen to the conversation because I didn't know the backstory the first night. So that first night, I also got to listen to the keynote speaker, which was Dr. Steve Gallion. So he actually is a school board member in Miami-Dade County in Florida. So his name is Dr. Steve Gallion III. He's been in education over 20 years and currently sits on the Miami-Dade School Board, which is currently the 4th largest school district in the United States. They have 522 schools and serve 328 students with over 17,000 teachers. His speaking was powerful, and the work he is and has been doing is nothing short of amazing. But he really spoke to me on a few fronts. He left a quote, and it's been ingrained in my mind. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. And I know that this district, we've been putting in some work. The last thing he said was, we need to make sure as school board members that we do the work. The second speaker was Chuck Underwood. He spoke to generational occurrences, K through 12, and really how we get to where we are today. So talking about the generational marketplace, the persuasion, identifying our target generations. So we talked about the boomers, we talked about Generation X, we talked about Gen Z, we talked about making sure we knew about the core values and the core values and life stages, the importance of that, and knowing why we have the laws that we do currently and what generation is going to take over those laws and why that's important and how that's formed our educational system. The next speaker, oh yeah, I really like this one, by the way, because when we were talking about politics, this is what is currently running our system, the boomers and politics. And I thought that was just really powerful to sit there and think about who still sits in those seats and how things will change as we progress forward. The next slide. I did some work in a couple of John McDonald's sessions. A lot of his sessions were about threat crisis, school safety. So what is really the threat of our time? Often we're really concerned about school shootings. There's a lot of things we need to be concerned about before the school shooting. So I really like this slide because it talks about the things that we're really trying to work on here. So the bullying, child abuse, cutting, drugs and alcohol, eating disorders, human trafficking, out of control behavior, sexting, school shootings, it's more at the bottom of the list because there's so many other things that precede that school shooting. So John McDonald, he actually has done work with schools that have actually been directly involved in school shootings. And that's what was pretty amazing to me is that I had this opportunity to go to a relevant conference with state-of-the-art information and educational individuals who are in the trenches of what's actually happening right now. The next one is, do we know why school systems actually exist? I know we're often talking about schools, but do we know why they exist? School systems only exist for one reason, to improve student outcomes, not for adult outcomes, not for adult inputs, not for student outputs. School systems only exist to improve student outcomes. All other activities should be in service of that sole reason for existing. And I really want us to really start thinking more about that. And if we really want to think about student behaviors, student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors do change. So during my time, this really made me think, are we digging deep as a district? Are we hitting these points? If these threats are what leads to the big crises. I want to also, because I serve on the Red Committee, I teach recruitment. If we want to be a go-to district, we have to start thinking out of the box. We have to be committed to our students by also investing in those who serve our students. I'm excited to bring back a lot of great information from our continued efforts on this front. So just my thoughts. We're absolutely doing some amazing work in this district. And after conversing with many school board members across the United States, I definitely feel we are headed towards success. We have continued to work, and to that end, I ask that we as board members take more opportunities like this to head to these professional development conferences when they are available to us, as these sessions gave access to some of the top and most innovative educational experts in this country. Having direct access and connection to certain crisis programs and experts and all information from these sessions is invaluable. I didn't even attend that this was one of the best perks of all. I was able to do a lot of self-reflection and reflection with board peers. The networking and longtime board member connections I am forever grateful for with this opportunity.
Thank you.
You guys have questions?
I guess I do have.
Go ahead.
I really, when they broke apart last year,
Yes,
I thought we were ill-informed.
sure,
The actions of our state association,
sure.
and I felt it was self-serving, and they should have, just like we want children to work out their differences, I thought the various states should work out their differences, and I don't think there's room in there, because one of the major responsibilities of the association is to lobby for schools, for two competing organizations. So I hope at one point they come back together.
How many states are in COSBA?
23,
Said 23?
23, yep.
Okay. So I guess they wouldn't have advocated there. I don't know if that means 27 are in
I don't know.
NSBA or if they're in,
That, I don't know that that was clarified. But I mean, that wasn't clarified.
was it geographically significant? Like was
Yeah.
it Southeast and Midwest or?
Nope, there was someone from Idaho there. I met people from Alabama, people from New Hampshire, Montana. I mean, it was a little bit of everywhere.
It was an eclectic group.
Yeah, it really was.
Interesting.
And the nice thing is too, the conversations we were able to have leading up to the conference, right? So we could open up conversations and then you stayed in conversation the whole entire time. So it wasn't like, hey, we just went to this conference, like kind of when we go to conference here in Illinois. No, I mean, I can still access all information to even things that I didn't go to. So I can get all those slides, I can get,
It's available on the Illinois one as well.
well,
Slides from all the,
from all of them?
From all of them
I guess I never
available
used
for
it like that.
yeah, it was new this year.
Okay, so then it must be similar. I was gonna say it wasn't like that before, so I didn't use it like that. Okay. But yeah, it's great. And then it's kind of encouraging too, because you get all the points and all that jazz. And I was in the top 10, guys, just so you know.
Has this newest association established any legislative positions yet, or?
Not, well, I know that they are working on that. And I do know that there is a federal legislation that individuals are going to in September. So there is something coming up, like the 25th through the 27th.
Okay.
That's on my radar, so.
Thank you for presenting to us.
Of course.
Great information.
The only other, you can sit down. I was just in support of what member Best Tab has mentioned. I think that it's imperative as school board members. I know that not everybody feels the same way. My tenure is short on this board, but I will say that while chairing the Western division of school boards is not seen by some board members here as something that might be worthy of time because the districts in our division are not similar to us, right? We tend to be of our region. We are the largest school district in that group. And so sometimes the conversations can feel like maybe they're not as relevant to what we're dealing with here. But I appreciate being in that room and hearing the different things that school districts around us are challenged by or are trying or those kinds of, because it informs my ability to then have conversations when we do go to the conference in Chicago, right? And taking advantage of that. And my only thing I will say about COSBA is I look at the list of school boards that are on there, and my only concern moving forward is where they may find themselves sitting in regards to legislation. Because there are a number of states on that list who tend to not feel the same way that we do in regards to certain opportunities for our students. States like Florida, Missouri, Iowa, Kentucky, Texas. Since this is my last business board meeting, I will say that I think that it is imperative as school board members that we continue to hold whatever national organization we are a part of to the fire to make sure that as school boards in the state of Illinois, we are still providing educational opportunities to all of our students, including the most vulnerable.
So a lot of the ones that I was engaging with, many of the schools were our size and rural, and then, of course, bigger. But how I saw it and was gauging, right, what we're doing. We are doing some progressive work at the end of the day. You know, there are districts our size that don't have deans. They can't afford deans, okay? There are districts that don't have counselors outside of academic counselors. These are just fine examples. Being able to have those conversations, right? This is progressive work that we're doing in our district that some districts just can't do and can't figure out how to do because the top doesn't get it. So then it's also tough for the administration and superintendent to get it. So being able to have those conversations and how are you doing it and in what way and how's your funding and all those are things that for those types of states, right? It was eye-opening a little bit, right? Because when we're thinking we're struggling and we're having sleepless nights, right? Imagine their nights. Okay. So, I mean, honestly, we are doing some really great work here. Even when we feel like we are battling up against a brick wall. Okay. I mean, we could have it way worse and we don't. So we just got to keep doing the work.
I agree. Let's just keep making it better every day. Moving on, need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Allison?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay, next on the agenda is the building reports. Everybody's received them from the respective principals. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. I don't know if this falls in, I can't remember whose report. I think it was Mrs. Ritchie's. A little alarming. So I have a question on the Title IX. Said there was 26 Title IX sexual allegation reports received. What do we do with those? So that's alarming to me that there was 26 in 1 month.
I'll fill some time while she's walking up here. There was some legislation change that requires school districts to treat these very differently than we have in the past. And so Mrs. Ritchie will highlight some of the reasons why and then what the timeline looks like on those reports.
Sure. Dr.
Is that it? Better? All right. But the legislation changed and now the rules that are governing the post-secondary, anytime there are allegations of sexual misconduct, and that could be student to student, it could be adult to student, student to adult. So the initial phase is in the reporting aspect, and there is a form that has been created for our district. We've worked a lot with Luke's law firm in order to create processes that really fit the legal requirements for us as a district from really a few lenses, one from the risk management standpoint and protecting our employees, as well as creating a safe and inclusive learning environment for our students. So the first step is in the reporting. The reporting can happen from really any individual. It can come from a parent, a student, again, a teacher, any staff person is responsible in this area for typically the most basic way to talk about it is to not engage in sexual harassment of any other person that you're dealing with day to day. So once the sexual allegation form is filled out, and so as you can imagine within a school K-12 setting, that could be a first grader touching another first grader on the bottom, for example. So that report then needs to be filled out by the person that has witnessed that. And at that point in time, they are contacting the parent or guardian and making them aware of what has occurred in that situation. And Tina Imes is our district Title IX coordinator now. So her role then is to offer supports to the individual that allegedly there was an allegation that they were sexually harassed in some way. So she offers support to those individuals. If it does not reach the threshold of being a true Title IX case, it stays in the allegation point, but you're still offering supports to that individual because just because it doesn't reach that threshold of severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, it still can create issues in the learning environment for the student. So if it does reach that threshold, then it moves into the formal complaint process, which is really a time-consuming multi-step process where, again, supports are offered, but on this side, they're offered to both the complainant and the respondent. And really, you're doing an independent investigation. We have identified trained investigators here that then will look through a variety of evidence to determine what it is that occurred. And so this investigation would happen outside of any investigation by the police, for example, and no disciplinary action may occur while that is underway. So that can really be time consuming because you can bring in witnesses. There's a lot to that process. But then there's a formal finding and an opportunity for an appeal as well, if that is something that someone is interested in. But in our district, 9 times out of 10 or more, they stay at the allegation phase. And so there's still a lot going on behind the scenes, but they don't meet that threshold for an actual Title IX violation. Would you add anything to that?
No,
Luke?
it's a very process intensive process. There are any number of steps. So some of the other attorneys at our office have taken the lead on that with Galesburg. So Title IX is, as you might guess, very specialized, even within the narrow area of representing school districts. So if you want more information, I'd be happy to have Ellen or somebody else come and give more detail on that, but the overview is accurate.
I guess the question I'd have is 20, do we have this many a month?
Now that we are following the process as it should be, that we are actually told, and I know Dr. Asplin, you would concur, we're actually told that it's typical to have even many more.
So we are one of the smallest members of LUDA, Large Unit District Association. At our most recent LUDA conference, where you have very large school districts like Chicago and Elgin, and I mean some huge school districts, but they said, if you're on the bigger side of this, if you're not getting as many as 13 a day, you're doing it wrong. So with the way the legislation is written, everything that Mrs. Ritchie just lined out is the steps you have to take. Now, there is a great amount of legislative back and forth on this because the intent of the legislation was not to make it this labor intensive at the K-12 level. But we are all following the law right now, so we have to follow what the law says to do. And so we are doing that. But I mean, it is heavy labor intensive effort to follow it with strict reliance. I mean, we've had cases, and I'll be very vague so that we're not giving away, but things where somebody was accidentally brushed by a Chromebook walking down the hall and they filed a complaint. And so we've had to go through days of that just on the investigation side. So, I mean, it took on a life that legislators did not understand. But the law is the law. And so we're following it to the letter of the law.
It's expecting to evolve further.
I think there's a near guarantee it's going to evolve. What direction it goes is completely up in the air. But I think the way that I would summarize it is that the front end of the process is a very big funnel. And certainly, as Ms. Ritchie said, not every case that is an initial complaint is going to meet that severe, pervasive, and offensive standard. So there are a very big number of things that are going to come in. Thankfully, not everything is at that level.
One really nice part of all of these changes is that through creating these processes and procedures, Mrs. Imes is really able to develop relationships when she's offering those supports and sitting down with those students and learning a lot of different things about where they're struggling in different areas, and then offer those supports to the families as well. And so it's another just opportunity for people to feel heard and then address any issues that are occurring.
I think the other thing that we need to acknowledge, and again, this is another area that I have background in, given my other role. You want high numbers because high numbers indicate that your students trust you enough to report what they're experiencing. And the process, while cumbersome, allows us to do ongoing education with both the person who has put in the report and the person that has been alleged to do the behavior. Now, what I will say is once there's enough data there, it will allow the district the opportunity to think about how they want to start bringing in prevention and awareness conversations. Because a lot of the complaints that we see that don't meet the threshold, and I have my own personal feelings about the threshold because it was the former administration that put those in and made it as strict as possible so that it would be, in my opinion, as hard as possible to file an allegation that could be considered a true Title IX complaint. But the purpose is that we need to have better conversations about what consent is. What is my bodily autonomy? Who has the ability to touch me? Who has the right to say things to me? And we don't do that well. We don't do that well as a district. We don't do that well as a society in general. The number of students that come to me at post-secondary who don't understand that starting a relationship in a car doesn't mean that you get to automatically continue that intimate relationship in a residence hall. Those are two different times, and you still have to have a conversation saying, do you want to continue this relationship? We're not obviously going to have those kinds of conversations in a K through 12 setting, but we need to start having conversations about what is my boundary, how do you get to touch me, and that prepares our students to better articulate so that when a complaint comes forward, they're able to really understand what they're filing versus this gray area of, I don't know, but this feels wrong. So I just encourage the good work, and the lots of hours that you're putting in will end up in some kind of prevention awareness ability in the future, and that there are resources in the Galesburg community that can supplement those kinds of conversations so that it's not all falling on district employees to do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Moving on, we have the special ed report. Likewise, everybody's received it. Any questions or comments?
Do you think you'll be successful in filling your vacancies? How do things look?
I have some more applications I'm calling in. Hopefully more. Put through, I think, 2 hires last week, so I'm hopeful.
Good.
I'd like, oh, sorry. I'd like to commend Mrs. Statham and her coordinators in a time when it's very hard to find any staff. Even though we aren't fully staffed, we're closer to it this year than we have been in the past. So it's encouraging. So thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to comment on one of your items, which is your May 1st Shooting Hoops and Smiling event. I know last year that was incredibly successful, and I look forward to being there again. Next is the Student and Staff Supports Report. Ms. Ritchie?
Do you have questions for me? Providing you with my report as well as some additional information.
You're going to present on that when it comes up in the agenda, correct?
I would be happy to answer any questions.
Right, I think at that time, maybe it would be appropriate to come up to the podium. Because your slides will be up there and you can flesh things out for us.
I don't have any slides, but I.
Well, yeah,
they're on- agenda. yes,
on the agenda,
The agenda, the whole contract's there. Yes, and we're buying, it's a lot of money. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Building and Grounds Committee report. Is that member line?
Yes, I will do that today. Well, most of the buildings, you know, are almost finished, but there's still, even the buildings we thought were finished have some pieces that need to be fixed properly. And part of administration's responsibility,
Closer to the mic.
move closer to them or move the microphone closer to me. It's wireless.
Don't break it.
It works on magic, I think. Just keep going. Okay.
Keep going.
All right. So make sure there's still some loose ends, you know, that need to be done. We went over the summer projects for this year. We approved most of them last meeting. And the architect's working with the approved contracts to get a schedule when they're going to start. So the next few weeks, you should see ground being broken for the washroom site, the tennis courts. A schedule will be happening for the tennis resurfacing and then the lights on that. A few months ago, we approved the lights for the baseball field, and I'm told that they are working. And right field has lights when it gets dark out now. Wasn't that the one that didn't have lights last year? Left field, okay. So everything's working.
The left field and right field poles are still up.
That's great. Okay, we have begun looking at the fiscal year 25 projects. And one of our responsibilities was to maintain what we've done. We've spent close to $90 million over the last few years on buildings. So, yes, and it's important that we maintain it. There's a few pieces that still need to happen. The first one I'm going to talk about is to pay homage to member Cervantes. We're looking at a permanent home for wrestling. It looks like they've been happy with what's happening at Gale. So it'd be important for us to look at how to fix up that building so that it can continue being a better space instead of just a cast off space. So that's looking at for fiscal year 25. So those are projects.
Especially since we have a state champion now. So we should have facilities that help him continue to keep that title.
It may not be ready, but it is nice now. Have you been in there? You may want to see it. But so that's on the list of things for the following summer. So we are looking, if people feel there are needs in the district that we're not addressing, please share them with administration. It'll make it to our attention. Thank you.
Parking lot, baseball.
Once again, we don't have magic. It's, yes, baseball does need more parking or people willing to walk from the parking lot.
I think the concern is for those who have the challenge in walking in I don't know how many spots we have in that parking lot that are.
30 maybe on a good day.
And how many, I mean, to mark how many for, handicap, it might be a burden on the rest of the. It's just, there's a lot of people who use that and have challenge walking, so I don't know if it, it's not gonna be my challenge, but it will be somebody's.
We do expect community to show up at meetings and share their opinions with us. Don't make yourself a stranger.
Mr. Pickrell Senior has lots of ideas and thoughts, so if anybody is willing to engage in a conversation, he's normally here, but he's not here tonight.
End of report.
Thank you, Member Lyon. Next on the agenda, I need a motion to consider approval of building times for the 23-24 school year.
So move.
Excellent. Dr. Esplin.
Thank you. So this process took some time, but I believe in the end, with all of the staff time that was put into this, I believe we've come up with a very good solution to try to achieve a lot of objectives. We've listed the objectives on the slide there. We were, first of all, trying to improve transportation schedule. This year, we've had a number of times where buses have arrived late to buildings, either for drop-off or pickup, because of how we tried to compress the schedule. We've tried to eliminate late bus arrival to buildings in the morning, eliminating delayed pickup times for buildings in the afternoon, and to accommodate the needs of families who have students in multiple buildings, because we've heard a lot of feedback about that. We've also wanted to provide additional time for staff collaboration, planning, and professional development, which also would result in fewer times for staff to have to substitute internally, and to keep staff in the classroom as much as humanly possible. So we worked with staff members in the GEA at large to try to come up with a workable solution for everybody. So what you see here, first of all, we put Bright Futures as TBD. There will be a definite recommendation. It'll be next month, but that has to be built off of what our first grade schedule is by law. So we had to get this done first to get that done. So we're recommending that King, Silas, Willard, and Steele, their school times be 9 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. With drop-off time in the morning at 8:30 as early as 8:30 a.m. for parents. If you want to use PALS, it's before that, but this is just regular school time, to 9 a.m. And then, as we said, YMCA PALS is available Monday through Friday before and after school. Lombard would see a change moving up a half hour of the start to 7:30 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. With a drop-off time of 7:15 a.m. to 7:30. There will be free after-school programming for interested families Monday through Thursday after school. YMCA PALS will be available Monday through Friday before and after school. So if you're worried about the early dismissal time, at least Monday through Thursday, there's a free option for you with transportation available for the afternoon after-school programming. And then Galesburg Junior Senior High School, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday would be the exact same schedule they have this year, 7:40 a.m. to 2:55. And on Wednesdays, they'd have a 2-hour late start, say 2 hours, 9:45 a.m. to 2:55 p.m. Drop-off times to be determined, and that time would be used for professional development and planning as well. So all current 8-hour employees would continue to work an 8-hour day. It doesn't diminish the employee work time. It just changes student contact time to try to provide more planning time and PD time for staff during the school day to try to meet all the needs of everybody who has aired some concerns and provided inputs for this school year. So there, as I said, there was a lot of time put into this. The union has sent me written concurrence with this schedule, so there would not be labor problems as this schedule were adopted. And as I said, we feel like we've hit a lot of the concerns that people have aired to us about drop-off times and pickup times and the amount of time that waiting for buses that end up being late because of how the previous schedule was run.
Speaking of buses, are we going to make sure that our paras are accommodating that bus drop-off schedule? So like, I know with Life Skills, they were having issues.
Excellent question. Yeah, we're in negotiations, but everybody's aware of it. So I can't tell you what the solution is, but yes, we will definitely have a solution that would involve that situation. Yes, everybody's aware of it and knows that we need to fix it.
Concerning PALS, how early and how late are those, do you know?
It's 6 to 6. Yeah. Those don't change. Those have been the same. Yeah.
Okay.
And on busing, we're moving Lombard from the elementary buses to the
Thank you.
secondary bus.
Yes, so that was intentional. When we've had situations where Lombard students have ridden with the older students, their behavior is better than when they ride with the younger students. So part of this objective was to have K4 buses that were standalone K4 buses as much as possible. We will still have some routes that are K-12 just because of the nature, but not that many.
So will our buses be running some routes twice to go pick up the K4 and then run back and get the high
Yes,
schools
yes.
on a Wednesday?
Yes. Well, on every day. They're stacked every day.
Okay. I have concerns with the late start every single Wednesday. We can't get our kids to school now. And when we have parents going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and how do you expect 11-year-old to sit at home by themselves and get to school on time at 9:45? That is one of my concerns. Another of my concern is if a child has to go to a grandparent's house because the parent has to work has to go to work early, that grandparent is responsible to either get the kid back to their bus stop or take them to school. I'm not a fan of the late start every single Wednesday. I feel as though we could do something different, as in one Wednesday a month other than every Wednesday. And how are the Lombard and the K4s supposed to get their planning time when you're giving the high school their hours and a half every Wednesday?
It equals the same amount because the elementary and the K6 get the extra half hour every day because theirs was reduced by a half hour as compared to now. So theirs is built into every day, whereas the 712, it's built into one day a week. And that's how it's evened out.
And we're eliminated the advisory.
Only on Wednesday, yes. To try to maximize the instructional time in those 7th through 12th grade classes.
I feel like it's more going to be a parent problem than it's going to be a staff problem.
The reason we chose, well, Wednesday is there's no magic choice on Wednesday, but the reason we chose it the same day every week was because we felt like that would provide consistency for people. They would know this day equals this, and it's only for this building. Because when we start doing, let's just say the first day, the first Monday or the first Tuesday or whatever, people will start to get confused. Whereas we know if it's every Wednesday, it's always this schedule. This is what it is. And we looked at the calendar, there's only one Wednesday during the school year where we would have to have a difference. And that's, I believe, the last day of the first semester.
So why before school and not after school instead?
After school created other problems. Some were transportation, some were extracurricular. So let's just use the extracurricular for a second. If you have late or early release on Wednesday, but you have a 7th grade track student, what are they doing in that interim time? We have more ability to have staff provide supervision before. So if parents need to come early to drop their students off, and it can't be for 2 hours, but we'll determine an early time for them to come get breakfast if they need to. We would have staff available and the paraprofessionals to be able to do that before school. Whereas the after school where it would start to blur lines, you can't have coaches starting practice because they're still working. We felt like this was going to be more easily implemented without hardship for families and students and staff than the other way. And we did look at both ways for sure.
And we've talked to the staff about this.
Yes.
They are aware of all of this, the time changes.
I can't be 100% sure that everybody's aware of all the time changes, but we have worked with the staff on all of these, yes.
They're still on the picture.
Okay. Allison?
Didn't hear you. Aye.
No.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Next on the agenda, need a motion to consider approval of the proposed district fees for the 23-24 school year.
Second.
I'll go ahead since I have a microphone. Who's the second on that? I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Thank you. We have the same fee schedule as last year, which is essentially free. The only fee increases we have are the mandatory ones for the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. So those prices go up, I believe, a nickel. And that's just on their second, like if you get a second milk or you get a second breakfast or you get a second lunch. Everything else is free. We still do have fees for driver's education. But beyond that, we have no school fees.
What fees are there associated with graduation? Is that still zero or what do we have like for caps and gowns or things like that?
That's not part of the district fee, so I would not want to speak off the top of my head on that. I don't think we have them, do we? Do they have to buy their cap and gown? Is there a rental option?
I don't believe so, but we have in the past.
So there is a purchase, but for those who aren't able to pay, we do have a way to get them a cap and gown.
Glad to hear that.
Allison?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Next, need a motion to consider approval of a quote for maintenance forklift.
So moved.
Good evening. Mr. Bradburn was unable to be here tonight, so I'm going to present some information. We've actually been looking for a forklift for, I think, almost 3 years. With the pandemic, we had a lot of difficulty locating one. It's become very necessary in the last few months to replace the 60-year-old forklift that we have that doesn't have any of the safety features. We were actually given the forklift by the state of Illinois when we purchased Hawthorne for $1. It came with the building. So we feel like we have gotten every bit of use of life out of it. But now it's time to purchase something that has all the safety requirements with it. And that also functions more properly. So Mr. Bradburn was able to locate one with the Illinois Lift Company in Cary. He did check at our local vendors. There was one in Morton, one in the Quad Cities, and this was actually the best used forklift that we could find for the money. So we're recommending the purchase of this forklift. The unit price is $28,950. We are going to add a side shifter, which allows you to actually, the forklift's facing forward to be able to load things from side to side. And then the standard prep fee of $399. So it only has, I believe he didn't put on here,
3,900 hours,
3,900 hours. And
which
so
is not a lot for a
not for a Toyota, no. So basic industry standards saying anywhere between 20 and 25,000 hours is pretty standard for a Toyota. So whether we'll keep this one for 60 years or not, we can hope, but definitely I think it will be a good purchase and it's something that's needed for safety purposes. Does anyone have any questions?
When it says with paint, that mean they're gonna refurbish it and paint it, or?
Yes, if you saw pictures of it, it's a little scraped up. It is a used item, so they're gonna repaint it, re-decal it, and kind of recertify it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, need a motion to consider approval of branching mines for MTSS quote.
So moved.
Second.
Good evening.
Hello again.
I've provided you with some information about a proposal to purchase Branching Minds, which is a framework that would compile data and direct our work around MTSS, which is our district's multi-tiered systems of support. we created a framework. Dr. Springer and a group of other professionals, representative of whole different variety of roles within 205, created the framework. So we're following legal requirements with this, as well as research-based best practices. And now it's time for the district to invest in a way to collect the data, monitor the data, and really best serve our students by being able to see the interventions that best serve them in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms. So through this program, it will direct interventions that are academic, that are also behavioral, and are also social and emotional. So this would take the place of purchasing the module in Skyward that can hold our MTSS data. And I had a group that got together, Mitzi Escobar's MTSS group at the high school, as well as some other folks in the district, to really evaluate our opportunities here. And we really came to a consensus that Branching Minds best met our needs. I worked pretty closely with their representative as well and feel that they've been very responsive and feel that this is really a value add for District 205. I would also ask if Carrie doesn't mind coming up. She was really integral in this process. And that's because legally speaking, there are a lot of requirements around MTSS processes for special education.
So we looked at Branching Minds and we narrowed down from a couple other companies to Branching Minds because having sat on several of the MTSS teams, we realized that not all the information is being done in the same way throughout the building. So we wanted to create that so that the equity was there for all the students, that they were receiving the same kind of services from one place to the other and it was being monitored in the same way. Sometimes we come in and people don't have the same data that is needed. So then also when we need to move beyond the tiers and look at special education, we don't always have the interventions having been completed as they needed to be done. So then we can't qualify a student because we don't have the data to provide for that. So we felt that this was one way. We also shared the demo with the 712 MTSS committee. They had a month to review it and play with it. And all we received back from them was positive feedback. They had said on the pre-K meetings and thought that there was a lot of paperwork involved and they were overwhelmed by the idea, how does all this come together? And this really helped them see it coming together instead of all the Google Forms and everything like that we were using, people coming up with things at the last minute. This allows everybody to see everything all the way. From the day it's put in to the day that we have the meeting, it's all there for them to review. It also creates our data sheets and our graphs.
So the people that view that are those people identified to be on that child's team though, no one else.
Correct.
It locks everyone else out.
The administration has the ability to assign a student to different teachers, and then you also have your classroom teachers. So if somebody doesn't have access to that student, they don't see that data. So if they haven't been assigned them, they don't have the data. And we can, in that program, manipulate who can see it and who cannot. And going through the professional development, there's a set team also that would go to the professional development training and come back and train the rest of our staff. And then we'll also help oversee it as it's working through the buildings.
How many people would, like our entire staff would be trained in this? And
Yes, eventually the whole staff would be trained because if a classroom teacher is entering tier 1 information, they have to be trained on how to use it. If they're entering tier 2 information and data, they have to be able to document it and put it in.
okay, yeah, how long is the training?
So we have a proposal for professional development that really we can tailor to our own needs. But typically they would like to do a kickoff this summer, which would be full day with administration and a few sample interventionists from a variety of buildings. And then they move into more of a hybrid approach where it's partially online and then they do some in-person visits as well. So that's a 2-year commitment for that professional development. And the professional development for me, and you could speak to this too, Carrie, I've been very impressed with that aspect because they really, they complete what's called a roots profile to really look at your district's needs and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are and really tailor it to what each district needs to be successful here. And MTSS is for every student in the district. It's not for students only that are struggling, every student. Students that are doing exceptionally well, students in between. That's a really important aspect of MTSS.
Does the data on students automatically get transferred or it gets transferred upon our request?
Are you referring to using Clever in terms of syncing up between Skyward and Branching Minds, or are you asking something else?
Sure.
Okay. Yes,
Sounds clever.
Yeah, it's my.
Carrie is.
Clever
one second
is
and I am.
our system that we use district-wide for access to different programs. Many of the elementary schools and even the 712 building uses it. Every student is rostered into a classroom and every teacher has access to Clever. But what Branching Minds does is they use Clever as the student import system. It pulls everything from Skyward that we need and puts it into Clever. It will put in our discipline, attendance, grades, and then we, as the district, put in the interventions that are being done, the data coming from the interventions into Branching Minds. That's not pulled from Skyward.
The reason I ask, because the way they charge for this is based on the entire district.
Mhm.
And what if there's 2,500 students who don't go through an MTSS? We're paying for them anyway.
Correct, because it's also going to identify which of our students might be exceptional in areas. It's going to flag them for us to know who might be our students that maybe we're missing for our honors programs, and that we might need to be referring that direction. Because a lot of that comes from more of a teacher referral, if I'm correct. So this takes out that subjective element and brings it down to the data instead. So it will highlight if a student is exceptional in social studies off of their test scores or off of their grades and things in that matter. If their attendance is an issue, it'll bring that attention to us. Maybe it's a student who's good, but their attendance is really having an issue. Maybe it's a discipline issue. So it covers all the students because it is for all.
And it's bringing all those pieces together because like most things that are people powered, like the work that we do, it's complex. A lot of times if a student is struggling with discipline issues, they also have issues with truancy. And this brings all of those pieces together, which is a really impressive part of it as well. You're not looking in different places for, social and emotional versus the discipline side and whatnot. It's bringing it all together for a holistic picture of each student.
I like that concept of it, but so it's still going to pull from Skyward?
It will pull the grades, attendance, discipline referrals.
That's what I'm worried about, the discipline referrals. We have some work to do in that area, I think, on Skyward. So what if we decided
We
to
understand
change
that.
Skyward?
Mhm.
How would that work with this
And
program?
This program, I should say, is really an important piece of goals that you, the board, have set for us in regards to having consistent processes, collecting data in the same way, providing the interventions in the same way, disciplining students in the same way. And that's an important piece of the work that Tina Imes is doing as well. So right now she's still in each of the buildings determining what it is that is happening in each building and then moving towards the development of the best practices, which would go along with this as well so that there is consistency among our buildings and our students' experiences.
So just hypothetically, if we went with something besides Skyward 5 years from now, we still had this, that could be incorporated into this rather than Skyward, right? Like,
Yes, we had a lengthy tech meeting where Carrie
Yes.
aided me significantly with some portions of that, and they assured us that longevity-wise, it wouldn't matter which student management system we were using. They work with a lot of different schools. They work with over 150 schools. They use a variety of different systems and programs.
You're proposing a 3-year contract with them, a
Yes,
2-year training period,
yes,
and 3 years where we use them as a source to manipulate our data for us. And
yes.
so we have, so at the end of, you'll come back to us in 2.5 years and
Mhm.
say, hey, this has been terrible. We have this recommendation, or we need to continue with this.
Yes, absolutely. I believe I'll be telling you that it's amazing, but different things have happened at times,
So right to say it's not.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I have done that before. And we'll be utilizing title funds for this. And it is a significant purchase. It is for the number of students we have and the per student cost to roll it out, the full implementation, and then also have that professional development piece added as well, which is very important.
I will also say there's another advantage when our students leave our district or new students come to our district. If their district is using this, we can import their data from that district also.
I didn't know that.
So we can share with our move-in students if they come from a district that's already using Branching Minds too.
But if you're only doing 150 districts, that's not likely because
Right,
they're out of
but-
New York, so.
Well, you're
They're
right, they're not New
nationwide
York,
company.
but they are, a large portion of them are up in the Chicago area,
Okay.
so.
So you're asking us to make a 3-year commitment on this, but only 2 years on training. So what are we doing in the 3rd year so that we don't lose the continuity that we've done the first 2?
That's a really excellent question. And I think that as I look at that and other initiatives that we brought to the district, we typically look at what are the best ways for the people that are already working here and doing the important work to see if they're able to do that training. For example, I train on a variety of things in the district rather than bringing someone else in to do that. So I would be evaluating as we go. Do we need something else from Branching Minds or are we able to do that training ourselves? So I can't say what, I understand that it's a 2-year commitment with PD. And of course, I think of that as a potential marketing ploy to get that third year. But until we get to that point, I'm not sure if we'll need those extra resources or not. I like to think we won't.
Are we able to, I think this sounds great because you're right. Every time I sit in a disciplinary hearing, I'm always asking for the data. I'm always asking for the interventions. I'm always asking, because it's not just about treating everybody the same, but we can't see the equity within our decisions when we're not all tracking the same data in the same way, using the same codes, having the same kind of conversation. And this sounds like that's going to help with some of that. Does this allow us to eliminate some things that people are doing in buildings so they're not duplicating work? And then coming back to us and complaining because they're doing these things twice?
That's a great, very, very good question. Branching Minds promises that the process is streamlined for our teachers, that the process is streamlined for problem-solving meetings where you bring parents in. That's really one of the most significant things that they are publicizing to us that they're able to accomplish.
So me being skeptical, I hate the word promise, I hate the word insurance. What happens, you get out in year 2 and it's now year 1 and it's not doing what they said and we've paid $100,000. What's our recourse?
I think that that's a question that I can speak to our sales rep about. I have spoken with people in other districts that are satisfied, but certainly every district does have unique complexities. So I think that that's an excellent question that I could pose to our sales rep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
For what it's worth too, I will tell you, in other districts where I have worked previously, we had something like this. We never had Branching Minds. And there are products that I'm familiar with in the past that don't exist anymore, but it has been a concern of mine that we haven't had something like this because not having one-stop place for the data for interventions is difficult because people can interpret it differently. It's not the same platform. It's not, the same expectations because it's just everything gets skewed a little bit. This has actually been, we've been looking at different products for a few years and just could never really find something that we felt fit the bill until we found this. So it is a lot of money. However, when you look at it on a per year, per student basis, it's not that much money. If it achieves what we believe it will achieve in providing more real-time data to our instructors on what's going on with their students in their classroom, similar to what Member Best Tab presented on today. If the work isn't about student outcomes, this is what this is. So no one ever wants to spend this much money. Who does? But I really think this is money well spent.
So to that point, I'm not a mather. I don't math well. What's the percentage of $90 million to $100,000? Anybody math real quick? Is it less than 1%? Okay.
Yes.
So we've, as a district, just spent the last several years creating buildings so that our teachers, our staff, and our administrators could do the work that we're asking them to do. We have asked them to come to us with the resources that will help them do their job better. And that's exactly what they've done at a cost that I think is minuscule compared to what we have done with our district funds over the last couple of years.
It's 0.1%, by the way.
Yes, vote to me.
I think we just have to remember that, when we're making decisions up here, especially when we need to make finite decisions with some of our students. We want that data there. That's what we've been asking for. And if this is going to be a one-stop shop for us, especially when we have to make certain decisions, I think that's super important because there's been plenty of times we don't get all the data, then we're asking the questions and you got to go back to the drawing board. If we can prevent that and you can come with everything you need, that makes things so much easier for us on this end, right? Because it means you did the work. So then we can do our work. Correct. Correct. So I just think we need to kind of put that in perspective outside of, yes, the cost really is minimal when we really sit there and think about it. And if we're talking about the student outcomes, right? What's the goal here, right? So that's really what I have on this. I think it makes sense. The math is mathing for me.
I think too, our teachers will be really excited to have the insights about students in their classroom that maybe they don't know very well, and they're able to see some things that are interesting that can draw attention to a variety of things. And as Carrie mentioned, many of them positive things that maybe are not noticed that would be helpful to them in serving them.
Do you know how long Branching Minds has been? Is this a relatively new
I've been
software
told,
company
but
or?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Do you know, Member Lyon?
That's probably my biggest concern is,
What's the, what kind of time frame are the teachers going to have to enter this stuff in, or what? Like, that'll be the next concern, I'm sure. So I guess that's my question. What's their involvement and how much of a time frame are we talking about?
From running the demo, what we have seen is that you can put in information daily as you do your interventions with the students. They can put in the information daily or they can put it in weekly. Now, as the administrator of the intervention and assigning it, you can also ask how often you want it put in. Do you want them to put it in weekly? Do you want them to put it in bi-weekly? Do you want them to put it in once a month? You also get a report back when they haven't done that so that you can touch base with them to remind them that, hey, I need that information in here. They get a reminder also that says, hey, I need this information in here. So it also kind of keeps that accountability going for all of us. Which, you know, is important, but it's not something that's extremely time consuming because once they've been assigned it, they've been assigned the intervention, the student, and what intervention they're doing, then they just have to put in their data when they pull that information from the student with
How are
whatever
they
they're doing.
documenting it now?
How are they doing it now? Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets? Yes, which is not always as efficient. And that's the next thing. Branching Minds also does the graphing for us. Like when I do a Google Sheet now, I put in all that data, then I have to go highlight the cells, format the cells, make the charts that I need. So that's my evenings. So, I mean,
Or whatever you want.
it is more time saving than what I do. I mean, I can see where I would save time in my position as a behavior interventionist. The data that I'm graphing would be already graphed for me, and I don't have to go through and format every different student's cells and everything too. So I can see how it can save time.
okay.
They've been in business since 2012, 13.
No.
Okay, Allison?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And thank you, Carrie, for coming up unexpectedly. She didn't know I was
Yes.
doing that to her. She is off today and I greatly appreciate her.
We do too.
Next, I need a motion to consider approval of the custodial maintenance transportation agreement.
Second.
So we have a 4-year contract in front of you, 4-year consideration. I will tell you the custodial maintenance, transportation for everybody in the audience. Transportation is still in there because we used to have transportation employees. There aren't any anymore. But we keep the name in there. So it's really just custodial maintenance. They ratified this contract today. So if the board does approve it, it would go into effect next year. But it does call for a few language changes, nothing that was huge. We did have some improvements from our side in terms of who is on call in case some emergencies arise, to very much clarify that. We did a survey of area employees for like positions, and we felt like we needed to get our first year raises up some to try to stay competitive. So you'll see roughly a 12% increase in year one. And it's not even across the board, so that's why I'm saying roughly. And then the average of a 3% increase to subsequent years in the contract. But we feel like we'll remain competitive and be able to provide ongoing raises for the staff that are here and be able to keep the staff that we have. And I would thank the negotiating committee members Sherpy and Lyon, for attending those meetings, along with Mrs. Ham and Mr. Bradburn and myself. Any questions about anything in the contract?
Seeing none. Allison?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Need a motion to consider approval of the personnel report.
Second.
Allison?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 And Dr. Asplin, a grievance update?
I think I'll take the next two. We have no outstanding grievances. And I'll just go right down to FOIA requests. I would have told you none until today. We received employee names and email address requests from Data Research Partners. And then Strong Law has FOIA records pertaining to transportation. That's it.
Okay. Wrapping things up, comments by the Board of Education. I'm going to skip right to Member Cervantes.
I mean, I'll take it. I plan on making my end of term remarks next week when my family, or next month, thanks, when my family is able to be here. But tonight I'm gonna make a few comments on behalf of the board members up here who still have children in our district. And as much as I'd like to end on a really lovely note, I'm gonna remind everybody in our community, I'm going to remind everybody from our superintendent on down that these 7 seats up here, while elected, are voluntary. These 7 seats up here are filled by individuals who have taken a commitment to take hours out of their months, largely unrecognized unless somebody is upset, and all with zero compensation. And that at the end of the day, they are still people. And they know that they have signed up for criticism by sitting at this table. They know that they have signed on to hear complaints from people who work within the district, people who pay taxes, people whose students go to our school in our district. But their children did not. And if we want to say that as a district, we are committed to demonstrating to our students how to be leaders, whether it is one of the 7 sitting up here, or it is the superintendent on down to custodial, whether it is parents in the district, then we have to model that behavior. It is quite easy to sit behind a keyboard and make comments, or to sit maybe in a break room and make comments about what we think we may know about an individual, any individual. But we should require each other to draw the line when it comes to people's children, period. We have information up here that is guided by FERPA. We, the 7 of us up here, hold that distinct responsibility very, very close. It is very, very important. And I would hope that the members of our district who are employed, as well as their family members, would feel the same way. Because you never know when you might find yourself on the other end of that conversation. And it's not fun. It's not fun in the least. Our job up here is students. We educate them, we protect them. And that includes those students whose parents sit at this table.
Member Bestab?
Always gotta come after Tiana.
Hey, you just got one more meeting like that.
Hey, hey. That conversation's real serious. We have a job to do. It is this board's duty to make sure that we are protecting every single child, parent, and guardian in this district and student records. It starts with us, Dr. Asplin, you, and on down. I can't say it better than Tiana, but if at some point someone in this district is not holding that and upholding that responsibility, we have a major problem. I know we all know we have a major problem with this. We have some work we need to do with this. Board, I'm requesting policy relook at what we're doing with making sure we're upholding student records, Dr. Asplin, working with your staff, and having a plan back to us June meeting. This is out of control. We have a due diligence as a board and as staff. And we need to take it serious. On another note, we were talking about Women's History Month last month, and Miss Hutton got an award. So congrats to you.
I just want to say that I, as a board member, got to attend Thrive in 205 last month. And thank you to Mindy and your team. It was a very well attended event. I hope that lots of you plan to attend next year, board members, because it was very fun and everybody was in a really good mood and it wasn't something that they felt like they had to come to. They came because they wanted to come to. And it was nice to see everybody and people were smiling and people were talking, and lunchtime people were sitting with people that you probably wouldn't think that they were friends with and they were talking to. And it was just a really good day to see everybody together. And so I appreciate all of your efforts and everything that you guys did, because I know it was probably really hard, but everybody appreciated it. Even the teachers or the staff that came from out of town, I stopped them because I would see them wearing different school shirts and I'm like, hey, what'd you think of today? And they were just overjoyed, like, this is great. I hope this continues. So we had talked about the funding because we won't have our ESSER grants anymore, but I hope this is something that we as a district and as a board push to keep giving our teachers and our staff to look forward to every year.
Okay, we'll continue with the ladies. Member Betcher?
Rach, I don't think there's much I can say after the three of them. So I will echo what they have. I will miss some of that expertise and will be consulting her all the time.
No comment.
I have three comments, or four. First of all, I looked up four. Dr. Gallen, in Florida school districts, they pay their board members. He's up 122,000.
No, I forgot, like a lot of state
You
and
had your
school
chance.
districts. No, this is a good point. In Illinois, we're like one of the few who don't get compensated in some
I
way.
think that's a good
We
one.
need to be advocating for that. No,
No, we don't. Okay. We're out. As I looked at the list of who the member states were, we're ahead of most of those states when we do for children, like funding schools. But okay, over the last, Harry, don't laugh at me. Come on. Okay. I got to attend SpongeBob SquarePants musical. And I even went twice. And lots of kids were there and the audience was there. It was wonderful to see an audience using our new performing arts center. And I'm glad kids can get in their activity passes, and it's what we should be offering to our children. And I'm glad we're able to do it. And the kids who participate seemed really to enjoy themselves. So I would like to hope we can use that space well and hopefully use the little theater as well and expand what we offer those children who may not do athletics, but may want to do something else. Okay, want to note that we're having an open house for this building on May 8th. No, it got changed.
We have to change that, yeah. So,
Oh, well, John.
yeah, I apologize if we didn't get that canceled for you. Yeah, so there was a conflict with the ROE.
So when are we doing it? May 8th?
It
Just
was
said that.
May 8th before the board meeting. Felt like trying to get everybody here.
Chopped
Yeah.
liver.
We'll have a busy board meeting then.
Felt like we'd get a lot of people.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
Lock the doors.
You approved those at the next meeting for the following board,
Okay.
so that's how, yeah. That'll be on next month's agenda.
Okay, sorry.
Can I do my last item now?
I'm sorry.
Well, I would like to thank Tiana for her service, even though she is going to come next month. She does bring something to a board that is necessary for any board, and I'll be missing her for this reason, and that's institutional memory. Because it's important not to have people here for 4 years and move on. And we've had, because of the election, we'll have 2 more people returning, because institutional memory is very important. Otherwise, you make the same mistakes over and over again. And that's very good. I thank her for her service and her advocacy for children and for wrestling and for bowling. I think that's all. Okay. And cadets. All right. Thank you, Tiana.
Well, likewise, Tiana, thank you. You have led us all many times, but again, I'll save that for the next meeting. I don't have any additional comments. Does anybody have any future agenda items? Okay, hearing none. Future meeting date is May 8th, after the open house.
Yeah, put that on my calendar too. 5 to 7, I'm thinking. Is that what time the open house is?
7 to 8.
During the meeting?
5 to 7, 5 to 7.
Okay.
And it's for all the 3 programs here in this building, correct?
Correct. It will have everything open, yes.
Adams Islands.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
Allison?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for being here.